When a woman leaves, it shakes a man's ego, but when she comes back, it tests his self respect. Most men fail right here because they either chase her like a lifeline or punish her like a child. Neither makes her stay. If she returns, you act like this. Let me break it down for you. Step one, stay grounded, not grateful. When a woman returns to your life after walking away, the biggest mistake a man can make is falling into the trap of acting grateful for her presence, as if her decision to come back automatically elevates her position and diminishes his worth. This mindset silently screams desperation, and desperation never commands respect. It repels it. You need to understand that her return is not a grand favor being handed down to you. It's simply a choice she made based on her own realization, circumstances, or reflections. And while you may have wanted her back, you are not a beggar collecting crumbs of attention. You are a man who holds himself with dignity, and no woman, no matter how much you love her, should ever feel like she's the prize you couldn't live without. Staying grounded means holding on to the reality that your value never diminished when she walked away. You were whole before her, and you remain whole now. If she decided to return, that speaks more about the clarity she found, not about a deficiency you had to correct. So, when you act like her return is an ordinary part of your life's flow, not some miraculous event you're indebted for, you position yourself exactly where a man should be: centered, balanced, and emotionally sovereign. You listen, you engage, and you remain present, but you never pedestal her return. You don't pour out words of exaggerated appreciation, nor do you make her feel like she's doing you a massive service by giving the relationship another shot. Instead, you maintain a posture of calm confidence, as if to say, you chose to come back, and now let's see if this makes sense for both of us. Women instinctively pick up on emotional power dynamics. The moment you shift into overgratitude or act as though you've been saved by her return, you hand over all your personal power. You unknowingly place yourself beneath her emotionally, sending a silent message that she holds all the control. And when that happens, respect starts to erode. Slowly, sometimes even without her realizing it, but it will erode, because respect isn't built on neediness, and it certainly isn't sustained by gratitude for someone else's shifting decisions. Staying grounded means you appreciate her return without worshipping it, and you welcome her back without losing yourself in the process. You show up as a man who is glad for possibilities but unmoved by fear of losing them again. You remain steady, knowing that your worth was never dependent on who stays or who leaves. And when she sees that you're not shaken by her coming or going, she feels something most men never make a woman feel: a magnetic respect mixed with genuine curiosity about the strength you carry within. Step two, acknowledge, don't over-validate. When a woman returns, many men instinctively move toward over-validating her decision, showering her with praise, affirmations, or endless appreciation for simply coming back. They think this will secure her loyalty or soothe any past tension. But in reality, this habit quietly sabotages the very dynamic they hope to rebuild. There is a difference between acknowledgement and validation, and it's a line every man must learn to walk with precision. You can recognize her choice to return without overextending yourself emotionally or verbally. Over-validation isn't about appreciation, it's about insecurity dressed up as kindness. It's when a man unconsciously tries to reassure her so much that he ends up positioning himself as the one still seeking approval. This looks like thanking her excessively, promising to never let her down again, or speaking as if her return has somehow restored his entire world. The message beneath those words is simple: I need you more than you need me. And whether a woman realizes it or not, the moment she feels a man placing her on a pedestal, her natural sense of attraction begins to shift. Acknowledgement, on the other hand, is powerful because it's measured. It's when a man simply says, I hear you, or I appreciate your honesty, without turning the moment into an emotional performance. It's the quiet strength of presence without the loud noise of praise. When you acknowledge her return, you're not minimizing it, you're giving it the respect it deserves, without surrendering your self respect in the process. You recognize the effort or courage it may have taken for her to come back, but you don't act as though this action erases every standard you've ever held. You're glad, sure, you may even express it, but you won't trip over yourself trying to prove your appreciation, because deep down you know that over-validation has nothing to do with her and everything to do with a man's fear of losing her again. And fear is the last energy you want to bring into a dynamic that's supposed to be about mutual respect and connection. The truth is, women are far more attuned to emotional dynamics than most men realize. They feel when a man's words come from strength versus when they're soaked in subtle desperation. They sense when you're speaking from a place of inner security versus when you're trying to protect yourself from rejection. So when she returns, your words must be anchored in calm, not in compensation. You don't need to validate her existence, nor do you need to justify why she's back in your life. What matters is that you meet her with honesty, acknowledge the moment for what it is, and allow the relationship to unfold naturally from there. Not with grand gestures or exaggerated affirmations, but with a steady heart that neither fears losing her nor feels the need to cling tightly. You engage from a place where acknowledgement replaces approval seeking and presence replaces performative affection. Step 3. Set clear standards calmly. When a woman comes back into your life after a period of distance or separation, it's tempting to fall into the trap of going with the flow just to avoid rocking the boat. Many men think that if they stay easygoing and agreeable, things will naturally fix themselves. They assume that the mere fact she returned is enough proof that everything will now work out smoothly. But that's a dangerous illusion, because when a relationship resets after a break or fallout, it either resets on your terms or on terms that eventually break you. This is exactly why setting clear standards calmly and confidently is not just wise but necessary. It's about drawing the invisible lines that define how you will engage, how you expect to be treated, and what kind of behavior you're willing to accept moving forward. This isn't about controlling her, nor is it about making demands. It's about making sure you honor yourself before you get caught up in the excitement of her return. Setting standards isn't about ultimatums or heated arguments. It's the quiet assertion of your values without fear or emotional manipulation. It sounds like, if we're doing this again, I need transparency. No games, no silent treatment. Or, I value consistency and I want to build this in a way that feels mutual, not one-sided. You're not begging for her agreement, nor are you threatening to walk away if she doesn't comply. You're simply stating in a calm, composed way that this is who you are and this is what you require in a relationship. That's it. And the reason calm delivery matters so much is because calm equals control. A man who states his standards with calm is a man who knows his worth and isn't afraid of the outcome. He isn't throwing standards around as a form of punishment, nor is he using them to impress or intimidate. He's simply living by them, with or without her agreement. The reality is, if you don't set the standard, the relationship will default to hers. And whether she means to or not, if you enter this dynamic passively, you'll soon find yourself adjusting to her moods, her patterns, and her emotional rhythm, even if it costs you your peace. That's why calm, clear standards act like a silent compass. They remind both of you what matters and what the foundation of this relationship really is. You won't have to explain yourself repeatedly or engage in endless debates. You'll speak once clearly and then simply uphold what you said by how you act. Because a standard without action is just noise. But a standard backed by calm consistency speaks louder than any emotional outburst ever could. And when a woman senses that you mean what you say, not because you yelled it, but because you live it, her respect for you quietly multiplies. Not because you forced it, but because you stood still in the storm without losing your center. Step 4, watch her actions, not just words. When a woman returns, her words may come wrapped in softness, apologies, or promises that sound almost too perfect. And most men, eager for resolution or hoping to avoid further conflict, fall headfirst into those words. They take every assurance at face value. They hear phrases like, "I've changed, I want this to work," or "I miss us," and assume that the hard part is over. But words are the easiest currency to spend in a relationship. They cost nothing, and they can be spoken even when the heart hasn't caught up. That's why wise men learn to watch actions, not just listen to promises. Words can mask doubt, fear, guilt, or even selfish intentions. Actions, on the other hand, are proof, silent, undeniable proof, of where a person truly stands. A woman may tell you she's ready to rebuild, but if her behavior shows distance, inconsistency, or half hearted effort, those actions speak volumes louder than any emotional confession. She may speak of wanting a future, but if she's still playing games, testing boundaries, or avoiding honest conversations, that is the reality you must address. This isn't about being suspicious or hypercritical. It's about staying awake. It's about refusing to get caught in the illusion of words without verifying them against her behavior. Because love is not spoken, it's shown. Commitment is not declared, it's demonstrated. And when you allow yourself to be guided only by words, you set yourself up for disappointment wrapped in false hope. Watching her actions means observing whether her energy matches her expressions. Does she show up consistently? Does she respect your time, your boundaries, your standards? Does she communicate with honesty even when the conversations are uncomfortable? Or does she revert to the same patterns that caused the distance in the first place? These are the questions you must quietly ask yourself, not with a heart full of suspicion, but with a mind clear of blind hope. Because hope without discernment turns into self-betrayal. When a woman senses that you're paying attention not just to her words, but to how she moves, how she follows through, how she treats you when no one's watching, she either steps up or steps out. And both outcomes serve you. If she steps up, you know her intentions are real. If she steps out, you saved yourself from another cycle of confusion and disappointment. The power in watching actions lies in the quiet confidence it builds within you. You're no longer a man swayed by emotional highs or sweet talk. You become the man who waits, watches, and allows people to reveal themselves over time. And that patience is powerful because it shows you're not desperate. For words, you're anchored in reality. You're no longer seduced by promises, but grounded in evidence. And in that space, you protect your heart without closing it, remaining open yet wise enough to know that real change never announces itself through words. It proves itself through action. Step 5, control the emotional pace. When a woman comes back into your life, it's natural for emotions to rise. Old feelings resurface, unresolved hopes awaken, and the desire to restore what was lost can easily take over your logic. In that emotional surge, most men rush straight back into where things left off, as if no time, distance, or damage ever happened. They throw themselves into the dynamic with full force, trying to recreate the closeness, the intimacy, the connection they've been craving. But this rush, no matter how well-intentioned, almost always leads to emotional imbalance. Because when you speed up the process out of fear of losing her again or out of a need for reassurance, you give away your control of the emotional pace. You stop leading and you start reacting. And the moment you let your emotions dictate your actions, you shift the power dynamic without even realizing it. Controlling the emotional pace doesn't mean playing games, acting cold, or being emotionally unavailable. It means setting a healthy rhythm that honors both the gravity of the past and the cautiousness required for the future. You don't pretend everything is perfect the moment she comes back. You don't fall into patterns of overcommunication, constant validation, or chasing old routines. Instead, you allow the connection to rebuild at a pace that feels intentional, slow enough to observe, steady enough to grow, and firm enough to protect your emotional boundaries. This is about giving space for trust to naturally repair itself, not forcing it through intense declarations or fast tracked closeness, because genuine healing and reconnection are slow processes. They don't happen in a rush of emotions or in a wave of nostalgia. They happen when both people meet each other with patience, clarity, and steady effort over time. When you control the emotional pace, you give yourself the room to see things clearly, to check if the foundation is even strong enough to hold what you're trying to rebuild. You notice if her efforts are consistent, if her words align with her behavior, and if the emotional depth you both share is being nurtured with honesty, not urgency. You also allow her to reinvest in the connection on her own terms without you pushing or pulling. Because when a woman senses that you're not rushing, not forcing, not chasing, but simply present with strength and calm, it shifts something within her. She feels the difference between a man who's desperate for connection and a man who values himself enough to let things unfold naturally. And that difference creates respect, the kind of respect that cannot be begged for or faked. By pacing the emotional connection, you protect yourself from emotional highs and lows that usually follow reconciliations done in haste. You avoid the trap of thinking everything is fine just because it feels good for a moment. You give both of you the space to breathe, reflect, and build something rooted in real understanding instead of emotional adrenaline. This quiet control over the emotional tempo isn't about withholding love. It's about mastering it. So you're never at the mercy of fleeting feelings or sudden shifts that could undo everything all over again. Step 6, be the man who could walk away, but chooses wisely. When a woman returns, most men slip into a silent fear, the fear of losing her again. This fear often drives them to cling tighter, compromise deeper, and lower standards they once promised themselves they'd never touch. They operate from a place of quiet desperation, thinking that if they just hold on hard enough, they won't have to face another goodbye. But the truth is, the moment you start acting like you can't walk away, you become a man she no longer has to respect. Because respect isn't built on attachment or constant availability. It's built on the quiet confidence of knowing you could leave if the situation called for it, but you choose to stay because it's right, not because you're afraid. Being the man who could walk away but chooses wisely means you stand in your own strength first. You're not staying in the relationship because you're terrified of loneliness, nor because you think this is your only shot at love. You stay because the dynamic aligns with your values, because the connection is healthy, and because it's a mutual investment, not a one-sided chase. This posture of strength doesn't require loud declarations or power plays. It lives in the calm way you handle conflict, in the steady way you enforce your boundaries, and in the peace you carry when things get uncertain. You're not rattled by the idea of losing her because you've already accepted that anyone can leave and your life will still go on. That's what makes your presence powerful. It's not the energy of a man trying to prove his worth or win back love. It's the quiet certainty of a man who knows his worth is not tied to who stays or who leaves. Women instinctively respect a man who moves like this because it tells them they are dealing with someone who won't tolerate emotional games, inconsistency, or half hearted effort. And that respect often grows into deeper attraction, not because you manipulated it, but because you embodied it. When you carry the energy of a man who could walk away, you naturally become a man who won't settle for temporary feelings or surface level connections. You no longer get caught in the cycle of proving yourself or fighting for attention. Instead, you engage with clarity, you love with strength, and you walk with confidence, knowing that staying is your choice, not your need. And this choice carries weight. It signals that your heart is open, but your standards are non negotiable. It means you're invested, but not at the cost of your dignity. You give the relationship your best, but never your identity. You love deeply, but never blindly. This is what separates men who beg for love from men who command respect. Because at the end of the day, love that's rooted in fear of loss becomes a chain, but love that's rooted in freedom of choice becomes a bond. And the man who walks in that freedom never has to worry about losing his place because he never placed his worth in someone else's hands to begin with. If a woman comes back into your life, remember, that moment isn't your reward. It's your responsibility. You don't win by clinging harder, proving yourself, or playing the fool in love's name. You win by staying grounded, by watching her actions, by setting your standards without fear, and by moving at a pace that protects your peace, not your pride. Be the man who doesn't chase approval, the man who chooses wisely and walks wisely. Because in the end, it's not about who comes back. It's about who stays for the right reasons. And the only way you'll ever know the difference is if you have the strength to stand still in your worth, even when everything in you wants to run after what's familiar. Don't just hope she stays. Be the man who could walk away and still be at peace with himself if she doesn't.